guys, welcome or welcome back. Today I am going to be doing a comprehensive run through of all of the books that I read in 2023. I only started making really specific book content on YouTube a couple months ago, so I feel like this is going to be a nice video to film because you guys haven't seen a lot of the books that I've read this year, and I had a pretty good reading year, so I'm really excited about this video. Basically the way it's going to go is I'm going to pick up a book, give you my rating, and maybe say like a sentence or two about it. Just because there's 50 and there's a lot of them, we're going to try and breeze through this pretty quickly. Let's just literally jump right in. The first book I read this year was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is a memoir, which I did rate it, but then I see a bunch of other people who say they don't rate memoirs because it's somebody's life story, and I kind of like that better. So I'm gonna take that rating away. But I did really like this. It was a page turner, and it just gives you kind of an insight into the grittier side of child acting and Hollywood. So I liked this book. The next book that I read this year was Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I rated this a 2. I think this was more YA than I thought it was going to be. I thought that plot moved weird and it just happened really fast. The love story clicked too quickly for me. It felt very trope heavy and not very character driven. It's basically about a girl who's kind of a thief, and she meets this guy who's an outlaw leader, and then they're accidentally like chained together, and it's just, I mean, like, read it if you want, but I would not recommend this book. The next book I read was The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was awesome. I rated this 5 stars. It's a book about middle-aged suburban women realizing that vampires are stealing children from their town. Great, witty, funny, feel-good read. Loved this book. The next book I read was Le Coeur à rire et à pleurer by Maryse Condé, which is a book in French that I read for a class that I dropped like 2 weeks later. I thought it was a good book. It rated 3 stars. Basically every single chapter related to a different body of work by a different author. I didn't really get that when I was reading it, so I think I would have to reread it and really understand the other bodies of work. It was alright. So that was 3 stars. Then I have Drinking Coffee Elsewhere by ZZ Packer. This I got at, I think it was a used bookstore maybe. Or maybe it was just on sale. I rated this a 4. This is basically a little short story collection, and every short story kind of leaves you feeling, it just feels unfinished. It's very thought-provoking, and I would recommend if you're into short stories. Next book I read, one of my favorites, The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. This is an awesome book that delves into how your body holds on to stress and trauma and how it manifests in mental and physical health, shortcomings of the Western medical industry, big pharma, everything. I honestly want to reread this again this year because I felt like I got so much from it, and I just got some new book tabs. I've never tabbed a book before, but I honestly might go through and do that with this one because there are so many good quotes. For example, a society that fails to value community, our need to belong, to care for one another, and to feel caring energy flowing towards us is a society facing away from the essence of what it means to be human. We are steeped in the normalized myth that we are, each of us, mere individuals striving to attain private goals. Honestly, I might put this on my shelf again for 2024 to reread this because it was so freaking good. Like, so good. The next book I read was Sabriel by Garth Nix. This is a like 90s fantasy. If you prefer fantasies that are not driven by romance but instead mostly by plot, this would be for you. It tends to be a bit objective, but the world building is really, really good, and it is a fantasy that plays on the dynamic between life and death. I really, really enjoyed this. I rated this a 4, and I plan to read the next one soon. The next 3 books I read are a series. They are all by Sujata Massey. They are the Praveen Mysteries. So we have, these covers are gorgeous. We have The Widows of Malabar Hill. We have The Satipur Moonstone. And we have The Bombay Prince. These are all mysteries set in 1920s India. It is a woman, Praveen, who is kind of like a little detective, and she helps her dad at his firm and everything, but she ends up solving a lot of mysteries. And this is really awesome because I've been trying to read a lot of books that have settings in Indian culture, stories that are more centered on those places to just familiarize myself with my own heritage, and also just really cool stories. So these books were awesome. I have to read the 4th one. It came out this summer, somewhere, but I just haven't been able to find it at bookstores. Yeah, these books were awesome. I think I rated all of these 4.5s basically. The first one, Widows of Malabar Hill. This one, a wealthy Muslim mill owner dies and his 3 wives sign over all of their money to a charity, and it's up to Perrine to figure out why they did that and if they're being taken advantage of. The Satchpur Moonstone, there's a curse that seems to have befallen a king, like a royal family, and she goes to figure out why and what's happening and how to save them. And the Bombay Prince, this one, a student falls from a balcony just a couple days before she had come to Perrine, having a legal consultation with Perrine just days before her death, and just figure out, was it an accident or was it not? I'm not doing a great job of explaining those, but if you like Agatha Christie, if you like mysteries, these are really well done books and I would highly recommend them. I loved them. Next up we have Heartburn by Nora Ephron. I rated this a 3. I found the writing style to be incredibly witty and charming, but it was just very much a book of its time. This book was written in the 80s, and you can kind of tell when older books are written in that type of social, political climate, it just like doesn't hit the same because you're like, girl, like what are you doing? So I rated this a 3. It's just basically about a writer who finds out that her husband is cheating on her. She writes cookbooks for a living. This is an inspired confection of adultery, revenge, group therapy, and pot roast. If that tells you anything. It's very short, so it was alright. Then, there's so many books on my bed, I'm getting overwhelmed. We have The Margot Affair, which I think I really like this. I rated this a 4, I believe. I didn't write it down on Goodreads. If you guys see me looking down, it's because I have my Goodreads pulled up with all of the books I read this year. I didn't really give a rating for this one. Sometimes I forget to do that. But I rated this a 4. This is about a girl. She's the hidden daughter of a long-standing affair. Her mother is the mistress to a famous man, and she's exists in the shadows, and then this journalist is like, I could tell your story. And she's like, oh my god, thank god, I'm so annoyed. And it kind of just sets in motion this whole, she's just drawn into this adult world that she didn't really begin to understand. I liked it. 4 stars. This is When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill. I rated this book a 4.8. I might even change it back. I don't know. This book is a Marie Antoinette retelling. The writing is so good. It's like a sapphic Marie Antoinette retelling. If I need to say anything else, I don't know why. I don't know why you'd want me to say anything else, honestly. But I also love the typeface of it, the font. It's just very, very beautiful. I don't know if you can kind of tell, but they're just spaced out a bit more. Do they have the font in the back? I love it when they put the font in the back of the book. I wish I had more time to really delve into how good this was. This book is delicious. That's what I would say. Yeah. The next book I read was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, the beginning of my love story with R.F. Kuang's books, but I rated this a 3.7 when I first read these books. My ratings will get higher as I go through the series, but now I would rate this a 5-star series. So this 3.7 rating is from when I first didn't really understand the characters. This is the story of a girl named Rin who goes to a military academy to leave her poverty-stricken town, and when she gets there, they go to war with another country. I think it's inspired by the wars between Japan and China. It pulls heavy from history. Basically think of this as mystical realism, and there's shamanism involved, and if you love a female morally gray character, this is for you. And I will talk about those books till the day I die. The next book I have is The Fortune Hunter. I can't find it, probably because I gave it away because it was bad. I rated it a 2.7. It felt a little rushed. I think that it had a really good buildup and then just like tried to resolve itself in the last 50 pages. And it would have been great as a duology, but it was basically just like, think period piece, think rich lady who wants to, you know, marry, and then like she falls in love with like a guy who's like, I don't know. You don't need to read it. Don't even. Next book was The Secret History. I didn't even give this a rating. I think I had to digest it and I just never got back to Goodreads. This was beautiful. Honestly, I loved this book so much. I love dark academia. Reading this felt like watching a film, if that makes sense. It was just so heavy on aesthetics, but it really kind of paints this picture that has almost these like gauzy, blurred edges. It just, you can see it really playing in your mind very well, and it is about kids that are studying Greek and Latin and weird little languages in a New England college, and they just kind of get themselves into trouble. I really loved this book. I'd probably go 4.5 with it, I think. It's definitely something that I would read again, for sure. Loved the writing in this. And then I have The Dragon Republic, which is the second book in the Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang. I rated this a 4. I started to understand the main character a bit more. I found her really frustrating to read, but her character is so complex because of these really intense and traumatic themes that I kind of knew at this point. I was like, okay, I need to give her way more of a chance. I need to sit with this and I need to give her space and time to tell her story is how I felt reading it. What else did I say about it? This book is intense. I got a similar feeling reading this as to when I read the Daevabad trilogy. It's anxiety inducing. The plot is action packed. You're never sitting still. And I told myself I was gonna have to read a couple of romance palette cleansers before I continue on with the series because those themes are so heavy and hard to read. So fair warning, but I do love this book and would highly recommend, again, once again, the whole series to everyone. The next book I read was The Secret Service of Tea and Treason by India Holton. I love these books so much. They are amazing. This was a 4.5 for me. It was so, I think this is like, yeah, the third book in the series. I don't know if they're ending it there or if she's gonna do another one, but it's basically just silly little stories of like pirates and agents and secrets and spies, but it's also in Regency era England and it's proper talk. It's just like a silly little comedic romance story and I would highly, highly recommend. The next book I have is The Snowball by Bridget Brophy. This is an older book. I think it was written, oh yeah, 1964. Welcome. This is a cute little story. It's kind of like a one-act play where it's one night and you're just getting the story of that one night, which was kind of nice because it was not stressful reading. It was not like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? It's no, the only thing that can happen is what can unfold in a night. I went into it with no information and it was very heavy on themes from like Don Giovanni, the opera. Don Giovanni is an opera, right? I wrote in my Goodreads review that this book is full of nuance and wit and I would recommend to anyone who needs a short little read that is still dense in emotion. So loved that. Next book I read was Dear Miss Metropolitan by Carolyn Farrell. This was a Penn Faulkner finalist for the award for fiction. I think that stylistically this book is very well done and thought-provoking and compelling. I think that I expected something completely different, which did affect my rating of it. I rated this 3 stars because I thought I was getting, you know, a, let's see, mystery type of book, and this was kind of written more in excerpts and telling this really traumatic story of what happened to these 3 girls. I think it's inspired from an actual true crime where this man abducts 3 women and keeps them in his like basement for years and years and years, and I just wasn't expecting it to be as heavy as it was, but I still think that it was well done. The next book I read I do not have because I read it on Kindle. It is The Heirloom Inn by Olivia Miles. I rated it 1 star. What? 1 star? 1 star. It was good in concept, but the writing was extremely poor, the plot was predictable, and it was like as if no editing was happening. You know those books where it's like there's 3 sisters and one of them paints and one of them's an author and then one of them does something else. Like it's just like, it was not the vibe. It was not the vibe. I did not like that book at all. Moving right along because we just don't have time for anything else. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I rated this a 4.5. This is about a girl named Alex who is in Yale's freshman class, not because she's so smart, but because she helps mitigate the different secret societies and clubs at Yale because she has like special powers, basically. And I don't remember what her powers are, but I thought that this was really cool, like a really cool concept that the secret clubs and societies of these old academies and institutions and how they need to be like power checked, basically. So I thought that the world building was really cool. I think that Bardugo does have a tendency to favor description over plot development, so it's not like this is gonna be moving very quickly, but you are going to be immersed in the world. I said in my Goodreads review that because that plot development doesn't move as fast, it can kind of, when I'm reading so much R.F. Kuang, which is just so move, it can kind of give you whiplash, but I still appreciate what the story was doing overall. I don't know if I'm gonna read the next one. It kind of resolved enough for me that I don't really feel like reading the next one, but we'll see. I might change my mind. I don't know. Then I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. I rated that a 5 star because I finally found a romance book that gave me all the feelings for characters that wasn't so unbelievably poorly written. I need romance books that actually make me feel something, and this did, and I don't have it with me because I bought it from a friend, but it just opened up the genre for me. There were like a couple of cliches, but the speed, I read this in like 2 days, like at the pool, like it's just a perfect summer beach read, literally. Yeah, it was a really good book. It was just about 2 people that meet. Duh. I'm actually not gonna explain that because whatever. The next book I read was The Burning God, which is the final installment in the Poppy War trilogy. This book I rated a 5 star also, which normally I feel like I'd be giving these 5 stars willy-nilly, but I think I got really lucky this year with my reads, but 2 5 stars in a row was crazy. I just don't even have any words to describe the emotional roller coaster that this trilogy took me on. It was like in the last couple of pages, it all clicked for my brain why she was so frustrating. I just finally understood Rin as a character, and I literally was just like, I need everyone to read this trilogy. Like I need it so much from all of my friends watching this. You need to read this trilogy. Literally drop all the other books I recommended and put this at the top of the priority list because I need somebody else to experience this too and tell me what you think. I cannot be in this echo chamber of my own thoughts about these books. They are so freaking good. Whatever. Fine, whatever, I'm fine. Let's keep it moving. We're like halfway through, I think. We're doing well. We're doing well. The next book I read was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I somehow managed to have not spoiled this for myself in all of my years on this beautiful earth. I rated it 4 stars. I feel like I can't say anything about it because I don't want to accidentally give anything away. But it's a classic. You should read it. Whatever. The next book I read was Sleeping Alone, Stories by Rue Freeman. Rue Freeman wrote On Salma Lane, which is a beautiful, beautiful story. You should go read that one too. This is just a bunch of short stories by Rue Freeman, and I knew that I was gonna like her writing because I loved On Salma Lane, so I just picked, this was a no-brainer to pick up for me. I rated it 4 stars. Not enough people are talking about Rue Freeman as an author, I think. Next book I read was Carrie Said It Was Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This made me actually care about tennis and actually understand tennis, and I always read Taylor Jenkins Reid books in a day. Without fail, I sit down, I finish it in one sitting every single time. This was a 4 star for me. The next book I read was Bunny by Mona Awad. This, I ended up rating a 3.5, but I actually might change it to a 4 star, I think. I think I was just confused at the end there. But I think that this book had really compelling prose. It had a kind of meandering plot, so it could stall you out if you're not kind of thinking about that. I wrote that the incentive to finish isn't so much to see resolution as it is to finally understand. I'm kind of eating with these Goodreads reviews, y'all. Like, it's about a scholarship student who is at college and she kind of gets adopted into this circle of bunnies. These girls that call each other Bunny, and it's a weird thriller horror situation. Loved. The next book I have here is this big one, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. If you guys know, you know, I love Priory of the Orange Tree so much. I literally rated it 5 stars. Probably it's the book that got me back into reading as an adult. And this is the prequel to it. Don't be stressed out by how ginormous these books are. I'm pretty sure a bunch of like the ACOTAR books actually have more words in them. It's just there's a lot of space on the page in the space in the margins. Thank you. I rated this a 4.8. I love this world so much. I didn't have the same exact feeling as I did when I read Priory, but I will read any of these books for as long as they come out. Next book I read was My Summer Darlings by May Cobb. I was really excited to read this because I loved The Hunting Wives by her. I liked them so much, but this was just unbelievable. You know, sometimes you can sort of suspend your disbelief. You can't even do that with this. You're just like, no, that's actually insane. Like, what? That would not happen, like, at all. It felt like it was going for shock value only and not in a way where it was even working. I rated it a 3 star, but it was a little ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Basically 3 housewives and this like really hot guy moves to the neighborhood and they're all like obsessed with him, but then something's off about him, and manipulation, obsession, and murder is how it is described in the front of that. So do with that information what you will. The next book I read was Nothing But You, Love Stories from the New Yorker. This book was beautiful. I love a little love story moment. Sometimes I think that short stories can be really hard to get into, but I think that these all fit together really well, and there was just the theme of love really carried through all of them because it wasn't all romantic love, it was also familial love and friendship love, and I think that this was just a beautiful, beautiful book. I starred the ones that were my favorites, and then I like did little dashes by the ones I didn't prefer as much, and I think I didn't like, out of all of the stories in here, and there's like over 20, maybe even 30, I think I didn't like 4 of them. But yeah, a beautiful book. I would highly recommend it. I rated this 4 stars. Next up on the list is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I rated this 4 star. I think that I can totally see why people are obsessed with it. I don't know if I'm gonna read the next one, but I did really like it. It's just about this girl who goes to dragon school, basically. I'm not gonna get into it because I feel like it's been all over BookTube and BookTok, and I don't need to, especially if I'm not gonna read the next one. But I think you should read it, but I think that there was a lot of things done wrong with the publishing around how the second book came out and how fast it was and the turnaround, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's just too much to get into. The next book I read was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. That was also something I borrowed from my friend, and it kind of reminded me of May Cobb's writing. I liked the twists and the structure of not knowing what the crime was or the setting because it made it easy to jump to conclusions, kind of second guess myself. So overall it was quick and entertaining. Nothing super special, so like a 3.75 vibe, but yeah, it was good. So, and then Just the range is incredible. Because next I have Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I rated this 3.5. In my Goodreads review, I said bonus points because I like Fitzgerald's style of writing, but sometimes I think the classics miss because they are not classic. Timeless writing and timeless subjects are two different things. Now, what did I mean by that? I think that I was more excited when I started it because it kind of starts off in talking about this girl, this up and coming actress in this Parisian town. I thought it was gonna be more about her, and then it ended up being more about this man and just his kind of decline into, not madness, but I don't know. I don't really know what I meant by that. We're gonna move on. The next book I read was Sorrow and Starlight, Zodiac Academy, book number 8. Right, this is 2-star. You're probably like, Mira, how did you get to book number 8 if you hate all of these books? Listen, I did this for Lily. I started reading the Zodiac Academy books because Lily read all the first 7 of them in literally a week. It was insane. And would I ever reread them again? No. Am I glad I read them? Yeah, because then I get to talk about it with Lily. This series is not for everyone. It's barely for me. The only reason why I like it so much is because I have a friend to talk to about it, and I think that if you don't have anyone in your life who's obsessed with these books already, it's just not necessary. It's just absolutely not necessary for you to do. Don't put yourself through all that. The next 2 books I have were also The Lord Sorcier, which is a little mini short story, and then Half a Soul, both by Olivia Atwater. For Half a Soul, I loved it. It was kind of similar to India Holton's books. You know, if you liked those, you should definitely read this. It's kind of like fairy tale romance, 250 pages maybe, very short, quick, easy. I think my friend Ting has my copy right now, so that was a good one too. We're breezing through them, guys. We're almost done. We're almost done. The next book I have is Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. I talked about this in my November wrap-up, I think, or maybe it was October wrap-up, where I was like, I can't rate this because I would unfairly rate any Cassandra Clare books. This is my nostalgia author from when I was growing up in middle school and high school and reading all the Shadowhunter books. I would just be totally unfair to rate them. This was a good one. The Dark Artifices is not my favorite series by Cassandra Clare. I think that if you were getting overwhelmed with her books and you had to skip one series, you could skip that one. It doesn't feel canon to me in a weird way, even though it literally is. Then I have The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I was really excited about this, obviously, because I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires at the beginning of the year. I definitely got a roller coaster out of it. It was good writing, but I've just decided that maybe horror genre is not really for me. I get too stressed. But this is basically about all the final girls from different horror movies or in this support group, and then somebody starts targeting them. Great read for October. Unnatural Magic by C.M. Wagoner. I definitely got more than I bargained for with this. I loved this book. 4.5. I thought it was gonna be like a palate cleansing sort of fantasy, and I found myself really engaged and loving it. Little troll fantasy moment. It has wizards and trolls are like the 2 main fantasy aspects of this world, and one of the main characters, she can write spells really fast, but faster than any boy her age, but they won't take her out to school, so she goes to a faraway land far from home, meets a troll friends, somebody's killing trolls, she has to solve the mystery. Brilliant. Boom. Done. Your guys are getting like hella speedy. Carmilla, a little novella written 26 years before Dracula, so I think this is actually the first vampire story. Lesbian vampires. Need I say more? Rated as a 4-star. You can read this in literally an hour. It's like 100 pages. Next book, Chain of Thorns, Cassandra Clare. I rated this 5 stars because it was just so beautiful. It's the, whatchamacallit, The Infernal Devices and The Last Hours are probably my 2 favorite series out of all the Shadowhunter books. I think if you had to read any of them, read those because they're just brilliant. They're just brilliant. Basically, I'm obsessed with these books and you should definitely read them if you haven't already. Just understand that this is important if you like fantasy. This is important. Okay, y'all, hang in there. We are almost done. Next book I had was The Book Eaters. I rated this a 4.0. This is by Sunyi Dean. I got way more than I bargained for with this. These people eat books, but sometimes they are born and they hunger for human minds, and it's just like crazy town. But I definitely love this book, so would recommend. I'm just running y'all through this shit. The next book I read was A Certain Hunger. I don't know where my copy is. I think I loaned it out to a friend. Rated this a 4.5. Do you guys want to hear my Goodreads review for A Certain Hunger? This book that's literally about this woman who is a food critic who cannibalizes the men that she sleeps with. This is what I wrote. This reminds me of Gilmore Girls. Hear me out. Because of the myriad of references and anecdotes that cover a wide range of topics, you couldn't possibly get all of them, but when you do, it's awesome. I saw somebody say that they DNF'd this because I thought it was pretentious writing. I don't think that's pretentious writing. I think that the writing is a really good example of writing from the perspective of a narcissistic criminal, a narcissistic psychopath. I think it was artfully done. I think it was meticulously done, and I found all of the chosen imagery to be dipped in the perfect connotation of sarcasm. I'm really sometimes I pop off in the Goodreads reviews, y'all, like I'm telling you. 4.5 stars. Next book I read was The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. I was really excited about this one and I didn't end up being super impressed with it. I rated this a 3. There were just like lots of cliches and very objective writing made it hard for me to connect with the characters, but I still liked the women suffrage movement and witches and kind of that setting, so I would still say you can read this, you know. I wouldn't not recommend it, basically. The next book I had is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to the Hunger Games series. I binged this. I rated it 4 stars. This book is awesome. I couldn't really tell how it was going to end because as prequels generally go, it doesn't follow the normal exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, like, you know, it doesn't really do that normal book structure. So, because it's kind of more just giving you an example of why these characters do the things they do in the other series. For that reason, sometimes it can be hard to follow where the plot you think is gonna go or what's gonna happen, but this was brilliantly done and I forgot how much I love Suzanne Collins' writing, so I was very, very happy with this and I would highly recommend. It's basically just the story of President Snow and like how he ended up the way that he is. The next book that I read was ACOTAR, vlog linked below. I think I ended up rating this maybe a 3.5. I can totally see why people get addicted to this storyline. I don't think it's the most brilliant writing in the world, but will I be reading the rest of the series? Yes, vlogs coming soon. Love. Then the next book I read was Babel. Emily has my copy right now. Shout out to her. I hope she's loving it. I'm obsessed with this book. This book is one of my top reads of the year. 5 stars. It's about, if you're a linguistics nerd, if you like mystical realism and fantasy, just pick up this book. Like, do yourself a favor and pick up this book. It is one of my top reads of the year without a doubt, and I'll probably think about it for the rest of my life. The way I think about language, it's just opened so many doors and thoughts for me. I cannot recommend it enough. It's about a boy who's taken from his native homeland, or it's kind of like a group of kids, and they study translation at Oxford, and they kind of realize that in doing their translations for king and empire, they might be betraying their own countries in doing so. Basically, the secret history, but if you added the colonialism aspect to it, not just like rich, spoiled, privileged white kids, basically. That's how I would describe it. And then I have The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. This I rated a 4.5. I want to read this in French really bad to see if whoever translated this captured the true essence of it, but I love reading stories about middle-aged women, if you can't tell by this haul of books that's happening. And then I have the last book that I read in 2023 was The Virgin Suicides. This is about 5 sisters who all end up committing suicide. It's written from the point of view of the neighborhood boys who watch them and try to understand them, but they just never can. It is a beautiful telling of girlhood and the hardships of just like being a teenage girl, basically. I thought it was beautiful. I didn't rate it because I just kind of needed to digest it. I think I would give this a 4, just like a solid 4. Like, I liked this book and I will keep it and read it again at some point. I'm tired of talking. You're probably tired of listening. Thank you guys so much for watching my 2023 Wrapped. Comment below any books that you've also read, your favorite book from this year. Give me some feedback, you know? I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm really excited because I read so many good books just this year. I cannot wait to just have, like, I'm about to unlock like 30 to 50 more books that I absolutely love. I just cannot believe that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.